listening to Cult Life with your host, Robin Jackson.
So the whole world is in lockdown. COVID-19 has decimated economies, livelihoods, and our normal routines have been interrupted. This pandemic has wreaked havoc globally, and we have lost many lives to this virus. Currently, many countries are starting to ease the lockdowns to get some sort of economic activity going. But it is clear that we will not be going back to life as we knew it. Right. At least as we knew it back in 2019. And this brings me to what has truly pissed me off over the past few weeks. My timeline has become a buzz with conspiracy theorists and their conspiracy theories. It is effing exhausting. From the plandemic brigade to the 5G causing COVID-19 punters, it's become a mess, I tell you. And the man that is probably one of the most famous conspiracy theorists is this man, David Icke.
Yes. Well, now, let me get the story right. The press claim that you claim to be the Son of God. Mm-hmm. Is that true?
Yes, you see, the thing is that it's quite funny, really. You know, 2,000 years ago, had a guy called Jesus sat here and said these same things, you would still be laughing. It's really, really funny that we've not really moved on that much.
Okay, so this was David on a show hosted by Terry Wogan quite a few years back. So here's the problem right there. Right. Look, I've read some of David Icke's early work. And it was specifically around the time that I was doing research into cults, and especially the Jehovah's Witnesses. The fact that this man believes that the world is run by shape-shifting lizard people should alert your bullshit detector right there. And then there's this argument recently touted by Icke amongst other people.
In 2017-2018, 45 million people got the flu in America, according to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention figures. 61,000 died. Where was the hysteria then? 61,000 people died. The point is, though, this is the point. According to officialdom, 80% of people who get the coronavirus, diagnose the coronavirus, have not necessarily all got it, have very mild symptoms. The vast majority of the rest have what they call moderate symptoms, and that leaves some with compromised and weakened immune systems who get the serious end of it. And they get the serious end of the flu as well, and other viruses. But what we surely should be doing is focusing on those people and doing what is necessary to protect them and their immune systems from the consequences. But to have the vast majority of the population who at most will have mild symptoms, some even no symptoms. I mean, I remember this story. One of the first Scottish people to get the virus was interviewed on a BBC local radio station. And he said, well, I had a bit of a mild fever. Well, what's that? That's the immune system using heat to kill the predator. Just perfectly immune system response. So anyway, he says, so I got checked out, and they said I got coronavirus. And they said, you've got to go to hospital. He said, but I felt all right. I had a few aches and stuff, but I feel all right. He says, so I'll go to hospital. He said, but by the time I get to hospital, he said, the symptoms are gone. And he's gone down as a statistic, coronavirus, in the numbers. So when you've got people who are getting that, even if they do get it, on a vast scale in terms of percentage, who have that response, you get an even greater number who don't get it. And for that, you destroy the world economic system.
Okay. So before I comment on that, this is a clip of David talking about algebra.
Right?
If you want to learn algebra,
hated
because
algebra.
you need algebra, then learn algebra when you need to learn algebra. You've got kids who are sitting at desks. Look at this summer on incredibly hot, lovely days when they could be climbing trees, when they could be pursuing their own interests. And what are they doing? They're sitting at a desk learning algebra. What does X equal? I don't care less. You make it equal what you like, whatever makes it happy, but just leave me alone.
Yeah, but my maths teacher would have said, I hated
hated
loathed and detested algebra, but my maths teacher would have said to me, the point of algebra is not doing those stupid sums with letters and numbers, which, a lot of people still have to do. It's to teach you methodical thought.
Well, David, I think you should have maybe stuck it out in that algebra class and learned something about graphs and relativity. You, together with Dr. Phil. And here's why. Nobody disputes the fact that the flu kills 40,000 people a year in America. This is over 12 months. The virus is more contagious than the flu virus and has killed currently 75,000 people in just over 3 months in America thus far. Do you get it now? If we do not have a lockdown, our health systems in countries would be overwhelmed. So yes, the fact that you are comparing this to the flu virus shows your lack of understanding of math and algebra and how deadly this virus is. We know that lockdowns are there, and especially here in South Africa, our lockdown was put in place to prepare our health system for what is coming. If you have watched the London Real interview with Brian Rose, where he interviews David Icke, and you do not pick up on the glaring, leading questioning from Brian Rose and the subsequent utter unprovable rubbish that is spewed by David Icke, then I'm sorry, my friend, you need to brush up on critical thinking and research skills. Then there's the other tinfoil hat conspiracy theory that 5G cellular networks have caused the COVID-19 virus, or that 5G poisons the cells, therefore the coronavirus is not real. Well, most of us who have done high school science will concur that a virus is something that can be seen under a microscope and can be spread in various ways, just like the common cold or flu virus. How the hell something that is a form of radio wave causes a virus to be spread is beyond me. The commonly held argument here is that the virus has only sprung up in countries with 5G. Well, I have news for you. The virus has been hitting countries like many here in Africa and Iran as well that do not have 5G. 5G is only present in 34 countries, whereas the coronavirus has hit 212 countries. Icke has also claimed that before the COVID-19 outbreak in Wuhan, that this city actually was the first to get 5G technology in China. This claim is absolutely false, as the other major and bigger cities in China like Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou all got 5G rollout. Icke's claims have sparked attacks on 5G cell towers in the UK and in the Netherlands. Then there's the conspiracy theory surrounding Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates, which is also touted by David Icke, and he has garnered quite a cult following over the years. Gates is no stranger to conspiracy theories and has been a target for many years. And currently, as I record this, there is a protest in Australia, of all places, asking for Gates to be arrested for crimes against humanity because of his advocating and his pursuing and assisting in creating a vaccine for this. But we'll get to that. Many of the conspiracy theorists claim that this pandemic was all planned by the likes of Gates and his associates. And here's why. Apparently, it all stems from a Reddit Ask Me Anything, where he was asked the question, what changes are we going to have to make to how businesses operate to maintain our economy and while providing social distancing? His reply is what kicks off this latest attack on Bill Gates, where he says that eventually we all have some digital certificates to show who has recovered or who's been tested recently, or when they have a vaccine, who has received it. Some thought that this meant that some sort of microchip or nanochip would be implanted into them via the vaccine so that Gates and company can track them. So this has led to speculation that Gates has engineered a virus in order to track everyone. It has also led to further speculation that he wants to achieve population reduction by means of this pandemic. Well, I have news for you. The device that you are using to listen to this podcast, be it on your phone, your cell phone, or the PC, is already a device that can be used to track you and your movements. There is no knowledge whatsoever of a microchip that can be injected via vaccine and via the needle of the vaccine. This is unprovable, and all records of all vaccinations of children would become digital and stored in a digital repository. This would become the digital certificate that Bill Gates was talking about. He has been pushing for greater preparation to deal with the pandemics, such as this, for a long time. But he hasn't been the only one, because George W. Bush and Barack Obama has made similar warnings before. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has pledged its full attention to fighting the coronavirus pandemic, and thus far has pledged about $300 million. So unlike Jeff Bezos, who has benefited from countries under lockdown, and Richard Branson, who has just asked for a bailout from the government in the UK to assist Virgin Airlines, Bill is actually doing something to destroy the virus. So that makes you think, doesn't it? Well, let's just stay on this anti-vaccination brigade just a little bit longer. Over the past few years, the anti-vaccination movement has grown. And here's the problem. The motivation behind the anti-vaccine movement has morphed from one rooted in medical science into one that has now become a distrust of governments as a motivation behind it. And because science and governments work together in many instances and issues of public health, this has created a mistrust and conspiracy theory that governments and the scientific community is working together to control people on this planet. Hence the microchip theory I mentioned earlier. And this has given rise to disinformation surrounding vaccines and its efficacy. So in actual fact, you are now fighting a social and political issue that has nothing to do with the science and the scientific and medical side of the vaccines itself. Many of the misinformation surrounding vaccines, causing autism, etc., has been totally debunked from a medical perspective. In April 2019, there was a measles outbreak in an Orthodox Jewish community in New York, and partly due to religious grounds, and partly due to the influence of the anti-vaxxers on this almost insular community. The Orthodox Rabbi William Handler has also been proclaiming that the well-debunked link between measles, mumps, rubella, the MMR vaccine, and autism. Parents, he said, parents who placate the gods of vaccination are engaging in child sacrifice, he was once on record saying. There's one fact that makes the measles virus really scary. It's one of the most infectious diseases known to man. A person with measles can cough in a room, leave, and if you are unvaccinated, hours later, you could catch the virus from the droplets still in the air that they have left behind. No other virus can do that. So if you are listening to this and you or your children have never had smallpox, diphtheria, polio, measles, rubella, etc., you can go ahead and thank vaccines for that. And if you are not vaccinating your kids, you are putting other people and their kids at risk. Look, we need to balance skepticism with sensibility. I admit that sometimes what we see in the mainstream media should not always be believed and can be taken with a pinch of salt. Some media channels are being used to spew propaganda, snake oil cures, remedies, and untruths. Misinformation like this pandemic can be dangerous and cost lives. So, Mr. Icke, all those who follow his unsubstantiated pseudoscience and reptilian-based conspiracy theories, if you are so sure that this is a hoax and not real, why don't you go out and take a visit to the hospitals in your area where there are COVID patients and go around shaking hands with all of them and the doctors and the nurses who are working their butts off to save lives? The very same doctors, nurses, and frontline personnel who cannot go home to their loved ones and hug them for fear of infecting their families. These are the ones I'm talking about. The ones who are breaking down and buckling under the pressure because it's taken a toll on their mental health and has made them physically exhausted. Oh, wait. You are stuck in your cozy house under lockdown regulations. How convenient. Let's make the world smarter again. Bye for now.